Welcome to the Cancer solar month 2024 with the Astro Priestesses. So excited to be here. And this is going to be a wow uh, June solstice. We won't experience one like this for another 19 years. And that's because we have a full moon at the solstice. So as the sun is entering Cancer, the moon is going to reach opposition the next day, a few hours later, in opposition to the sun in Capricorn. And what's fascinating about this is that the solstices are currently located on the galactic crosses. So there's the galactic cross at the galactic edge where the sun will be. And the galactic edge is where we're looking out past our galaxy. And there's thoughts that ancient writings that suggest that this is the entrance point into this reality. This is where we come into this reality. So the sun being at the June solstice on that point, the 0 Capricorn point, right on the cross of the plane of the solar system, crossing the plane or the plane of the galaxy, creating that cross inside the sacred hoop of stars that the Native American people talked a lot about and had a clear relationship with, is just it's just an amazing opportunity that can only happen every 26,000 years, but it's for a time period. So it came within 1 degree in 1926. It leaves 1 degree in 2070. We're in the midst of it now, still within a half a degree place until 2034. We are here to witness this and to be those who are helping to craft the new galactic cycle. So the moon will be where the sun is at the December solstice when it's on the galactic cross near galactic center. And this is something that the Mayans were very fascinated by, this part of the sky, because there's a great dark rift, and they had different landscapes that would capture the sun or capture this the rising of that, and the different names. I've heard Hunabku, the giver of all movement and measure, it's the source of the center of our galaxy, and also was considered the exit point by some cultures, ancient cultures. So you come in through the gate of the humans through the galactic cross at the galactic edge, and you'd exit this realm through the gate of the gods or goddesses, or supernatural beings, or whatever you want to call it, out at near galactic center. So here we have a full moon on this cross, on the cross at the galactic center, and the sun at the cross at the galactic edge, something that can only happen every 19 years. And this is happening as the moon is in its greatest out of bounds expression. So out of bounds, meaning outside the boundaries of the sun. The sun can rise along the horizon furthest north and furthest south. At the equinoxes, it's rising due east and due west, but at the solstices, it's rising furthest north or furthest south, depending on the hemisphere you're in. At the June solstice, it's furthest north in the northern hemisphere. Well, and it's summer, but in the southern hemisphere, it's rising furthest north, but it's winter because they have a different orientation. So this is just such a remarkable time, and out of bounds planets have been seen as wild cards. Like, they're unpredictable. And even though it's a Capricorn full moon, it's going to have qualities that are not something that we can necessarily know what's going to happen before it happens. The other thing to know about this is that in places like Scotland, the place where Nora and I will be for this June solstice, very excited, is when the moon walks the land. And so basically it rises up and then it goes along the horizon and then it sets. It never goes high into the sky or above the horizon. It just stays right on. It's like walking. It's called when the moon walks the land. And in fact, the ancients said, and that built these standing stone circles to track this 19-year lunar standstill. When the moon walks the land at the calling of the cuckoo, the great shining ones will return. And I just love that. And it's been coming up and more in my awareness that we're the shining ones. We're the ones returning. We're here to be witness to this. We're the ones that are here to help craft this new cycle, this new galactic cycle that's starting. And this is a big one for us right now. So our intention and attention at this June solstice is super important. We want to be very aware. So if you can't be in a place where you can see the moon walk the land, you still want to be with the full moon and tune into it and really receive whatever download of information is coming through these galactic portals, the one at the edge of our galaxy and the one at the center of our galaxy. And so we can then be as conscious and aware and loving and kind and caring as possible in helping to support what is wanting to manifest through us, because we are the mysteries. We're informing the mysteries, they're informing us. We know this is a big time. This is a magical, amazing time. And we are the mysteries that all this is living through. So the more we can be present to it, the more amazing it will be. So with that, I'm going to pass it along.
Wow. I love so much every word that you said. And I think it has such a power in all of it. It's like we chose to be here at this time. And what is it that we are creating? And this full moon that is squaring Neptune. And so that what is it that we are creating? There is this need to really keep connecting like with the dreams, with something that is not visible, and how we are creating through our actions, but also through our words, our beliefs, our energetics. And within that full moon of Capricorn and Cancer, there is always this nurturing of others. And even Capricorn normally is not seen like that in like mainstream astrology, but Capricorn is really a nurturing sign. It's really taking care of everyone in the tribe, is sacrificing themselves in order for the good of the 7 generations or even beyond. And here there is a really important call to nurture ourselves first. And I think in both of these signs, in Cancer and Capricorn, there is always this tendency and this cultural narrative as well, that you need to always take care of others and forget about yourself in the process of really taking care of the tribe and the family. And with Venus also in Cancer, Mercury also in Cancer, is something that I always said to anyone who comes to me with a lot of Cancer energy. It's like you put your mask first, you take care of yourself first, and you nurture yourself. And from there, you are naturally a fountain of nourishing energy. But if you are drained, if you don't have any energy, if you are not really typed into your own mother, like if you are not a mother for yourself, you cannot be a mother for other people. You cannot be a mother for your clients. You cannot be a mother. And sometimes also, and this is the Capricorn side, sometimes the others need the space to own their own Saturn. The others need to really have the opportunity to be themselves and then show themselves who they truly are. So it's this like a protective mother who never allows their children to do anything just because of the fear that something will happen to them. And there is the other side of the Capricornian of we can do it. Like it's really possible, but we all have to own our Saturn. And Saturn at this moment is in Pisces. So the invisible is having all this potency. And I think that whatever we are creating, and something that with Cancer, we always see it as a very soft sign. And for me, it's a mama bear. It's this energy that is super fierce if they are really protecting something. So in that full moon, there is this telling a different story, that protecting other people, nurturing other people doesn't have to take away of our own nurturance, of our own self-care. That is the beginning of everything, because the new seeds is like, how can you how can we bring a different story in order to bring forward our creations? And tapping into that Neptune is very important for many reasons this month. And before recording, we were talking about that. So I think it's very important.
I love all this, and I'm feeling so inspired. And I feel like I really feel like I have such an interesting solstice chart this year. I mean, we do every year, every solstice and every equinox. But what I've just been really like tuning into energetically is, at the time of the solstice chart, the moon is out of bounds in Sagittarius. At the time the sun is going to 0 degrees Cancer. And it's a really, really building momentum into that full moon that we're going to have the next day. And so the moon being the moon being Cancer is the moon's home temple. So that's why I'm so curious. Where is the moon at the exact moment of the solstice chart? And being in Sagittarius, this tells me, over the next 3 months, over this next seasonal shift until we get to the next equinox, that there's something about nourishing our sense of adventure, our quest for knowledge. Just going out and having the adventure of life, and also nourishing where do we want to, aim our arrow. And so there's something really, really powerful about to me about, and with that out of bounds moon as well, that over this next season, we really have this possibility to nourish our dreams and to really expand our minds beyond what our minds have been able to conceive and conceptualize before. Maybe getting out of some of the polarized thinking or this and that thinking that big picture visionary Sagittarius can bring us. And then we also have Venus and Mercury conjunct, pretty fairly closely conjunct here at the time of the solstice. Venus is at 4 degrees Cancer and Mercury is at 7 degrees Cancer. So there's something about really listening to the messages of our body wisdom about how we can really nourish ourselves. Like Mar, like you were saying, put the mask on first. I love that. Like, it's so true. And this is a beautiful time, especially Cancer season, to really tune into, to get quiet and maybe have that stillness, to go inward and turn inward and really open up and receive what messages can nourish me right now. And there's also something about, we probably have a nourishing message to share from our heart with others as well. I love that, the imagery, Mar, that you brought up of the fountain and the chalice. And I'm just feeling like with Venus and Mercury there together, there's something about really to get that beautiful infinite flow of water from our chalice, to really like listen and tune into our body wisdom, the messages that our body wisdom's communicating about self-nourishment. So then we have that infinite flow of the life of water to nourish others. And I always love to remember, I love to do this year round, but particularly around the equinoxes and the solstices and the cross quarters. It's amazing to really be intentional about going outside at sunrise and sunset and seeing the sun rise and set on your horizon line. Because like Kaylin said, with the Cancer solstice, no matter what hemisphere you're in, the sun is rising the farthest north of east at sunrise and setting the farthest north of west at sunrise. And if you watch the movement of the sun on your horizon line year to year, you'll see the sun kind of go back and forth from the farthest north at the Cancer solstice to the midpoint on the equinoxes to the farthest south on the Capricorn solstice. And it's just very powerful. To me, I feel like that bridge between the above and below when I get out there and watch the sun rise and set around the solstices. So yeah.
I love it so much too. And if you've ever seen any of those still shot photos, it's like that figure 8 kind of view of where the sun is rising and setting. I love that. And I think there's always a reminder in Cancer season to keep things really simple. Something that I've really cherished in my relationship with the Cancer archetype is the connection, of course, with the Great Mother and how she is just all accepting, all nourishing, all holding, and there's just no need to prove anything. Like I don't have to be anything other than what I am. And it's very much that come as you are, you'll be nourished as you are. It's like never turning anybody away. I always tune into that feeling of hospitality. It's like if you had a guest in your home, like you're always going to make sure they're comfortable and they have water to drink, and you want to tune into all their dietary preferences, and just make sure like you've got all the things stocked and ready for people when they arrive. And that's how I always feel when it comes to Cancer season. And so tuning into how can we create that space for ourselves and really not feel like we have to prove anything to ourselves, especially while we're in this time, like we've been talking about throughout this call already and earlier, where we don't have all of this expectation on ourselves around how we have to show up. It's just that we know that we're prepared and resourced to just be as we are, and whatever wants to come through will come through. It's a water sign, it's a water month, and I always love the balance of the masculine and feminine energy that comes through in this season, because we have the sun in Cancer in a sign hosted by the moon. So it's very solely lunar wisdom. And we're getting to kind of have this full circle, this very expansive viewpoint on the wholeness of our experience, which I think you hit the nail right on the head, Jamie, when you were talking about the ingress chart with the moon in Sagittarius. There, it seems like we get to really widen our lens and expand our viewpoint around what does filling our well really look like? How can we really receive? With all of this out of bounds energy with Venus and Mercury and then the full moon, there's of course that wild card energy. And I always feel like it's like the planets are these guides, these emissaries. They're going out into the cosmos to go and receive some message that maybe in our everyday ordinary consciousness we wouldn't be able to retrieve ourselves, or maybe if we're using our brain mind, like we wouldn't be able to access that information. So it really requires a sense of letting go, a sense of surrender to actually be able to receive that guidance, that message. And in order to surrender, we need to feel safe. And that's what I think that Cancer really offers us. It's like if we're in a fight or flight mode, if we're in a survival mode, we're not going to feel that safe energy to actually be able to let go and receive. So everything kind of, coming back to that infinity symbol, everything kind of curls in on each other. Like everything's kind of connected, as it always is in a water season. We kind of have to feel like, okay, well, what does this part need? What does this part need? It's like that mother who's paying attention to the nuance of needs. And so what does that look like in yourself, and what would provide a greater sense of safety so that you can explore and so that you can come into that more simple space of safe knowing. So that is really coming through as a major theme for this month ahead.
Yes. And I feel like Venus and Mercury are out of bounds, so they are wild cards. The moon will be out of bounds as we go into the solstice and as we have the full moon. And that's going to be true anytime the moon is in Sagittarius, Capricorn, especially the later degrees of Sagittarius and the earlier degrees of Capricorn, and also Gemini, Cancer. So because this is the time of the 19-year lunar standstill, this is just a little preview of what's coming in December, because the full moon then will be in the more northern part of it. It'll be in Gemini, and it'll be rising between the rocks, the chimneys, a chimney rock. And that's the only time it does it is in this 19-year lunar standstill. So there's some very significant places on the earth that have been tracking this for eons of time. And with that, we get to understand that now, remember that now, and be a part of that now is really cool. The other thing is that I'm really fascinated by, there's some other things probably going on between now and then, but Venus is rising into the evening sky, technically on July 10, and in Leo, and the sign that she began her cycle back in August of 2023. And so she's going to start her evening star journey then. And so she's in the underworld as we're at this June solstice. And of course, it's just made her exact conjunction with the sun earlier in June in Gemini. And so we're being encouraged, as we talked about in our last video, it's about how do we tell the news stories? How do we really tune into what is it that we want? What do we prefer? What do we want to express? And if we're willing to begin to let go of the old stories and tell the new stories, because the stories are what will help define our reality, whatever we're speaking into. And as Venus is rising up in Leo, in the sign of what is healthy self-love and being sovereign within ourselves, being authentic within ourselves, and coming into the evening sky to express that, to bring that more into our awareness once again, because we'll be able to see her once again. Now, when she comes into the evening sky, it takes a while to see her because she's coming out from behind the sun. So sometimes it's not that day, but we use a 10-degree orb to kind of get a sense of when that's happening. And I have seen her come out at that time. And I've also not seen her, gone and looked, but sometimes she's in that afterglow of the sunset, like the little red band. And there's that little dot, if you know what, like kind of where to look, you can see her. And it takes a little while for her to rise up above that to be really visible in the evening sky. But it's very exciting and really speaking into how are we having greater self-love. And let's see, I think that's the main thing I wanted to say about that. So focusing on how do we have more fun? How do we keep up with our playful, creative expression, which is also very Leo, and have that greater self-love. These are some things to focus on as we're moving through this solar month. So with that, who's next?
Something that I find fascinating with that process is that she's going to have an opposition with Pluto as well as soon as she enters Leo. So it's still, even if the death of Inanna is done because the conjunction with the sun has happened, there is still one more layer of stories that we need to let go. And something that's been very alive for me, and I think it connects a lot with that Cancer and taking care of ourselves first and all of that, is the role of the savior, because there is a whole story with savior, victim, and the perpetrator. And with the perpetrator and the victim, we see the dynamics, but the savior is still part of this dynamic because we are seeing others as poor people who need to be saved. And it's the role of many healers, right? It's like you sacrifice yourself in order to take care of others because they cannot do it themselves. There is a lot of ego in that story because there is this, I am the savior, and then I will take care, and I am the leader. And I think the leader that we need in this Leo Venus cycle is a leader that is first connected with their own hearts, with their own pleasure, with their own heart, in the sense of like, what is alive for me? What is it that makes me energize me and makes me feel alive? And that is what we share with the world. It doesn't have to be from this sense of draining our baggage with us in the process. And I was saying the same in the last video because I think that story is really alive. And I'm taking care, like in my own self, I've been really putting into the fire and not a savior anymore and really burn it. It's like, I'm not saving anyone. I'm not even saving myself. I am here to enjoy my life, to whatever is present at the moment, and then to nurture from that space. And it's very interesting because it will be Venus, it's going to be the sun, it's going to be Mercury, all of them. As soon as they enter Leo, they are going to show us the society, the shadow of society, and how is so impregnated in our beliefs, in how they have been forcing us, like telling us that our vitality is not important, like making a living out of doing something that is alive for us is not possible. And here, the leader that is being reborn is a leader that is connected first with what is my own vitality, what makes me feel super alive. And it's the same mountain, but in this case, it's a fire volcano, and it's really burning every little layer, every heavy weight that we have put over ourselves of sacrificing because of others. And really that role of a savior is something that I'm sure it will resonate, because it's resonating in all the circles that I'm holding with other women. And especially it's a role for women. Like we have to be taking care of everyone in the family, and then we are the last ones. And it's like, that's it. I'm done. I am a queen, and the queen codes are being born again, and that's the solar feminine that is being reborn after all this death in the underworld.
Oh, Mar, I love this. And I was just, as you were sharing, so much was resonating about what you were sharing about the savior and really like transforming this. And really, like, I find it so interesting because the Cancer new moon on, let me look here, on July 5th, that is at 14 degrees of Cancer. And it still squares the lunar nodes because at that time, the lunar nodes will be 10 degrees of Aries and 10 degrees of Libra. And I feel like that Aries North Node really holds such medicine if we kind of fall into that. I mean, I certainly can at times, you know, wanting to be the savior or falling into some of those codependency kind of dynamics. And on the cardinal axis, I mean, archetypally Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra can all find themselves working with that energy sometimes. And that Aries North Node is such medicine to it because it says, you know, follow your own path, do what lights you up, you know, really connect with your own pleasure, your own desire, and trailblaze your own pathway forward. Do something like you've never done it before. And it holds the wisdom of sacred selfness. You know, on the shadow side is selfishness, where it might be at a cost to other people, but sacred selfness is really when we care for our own needs and what lights us up, and really like you know, really like stoking our own fires. That actually is fuel. When we're lit up with life, it's fuel to inspire others to also be like lit up with life. And it's like that where we're lighting someone else's candle, like in Aries, when we're following our own creative spark. And so there's something really powerful about that new moon that still has an out of bounds moon, where also Venus is so close to like her ascent up as evening star, about really we really have this choice point with this new moon that like, are we going to choose ourselves and nourishing ourselves? And when I think we'll find we actually have more to give to others when we're lit up and we have this like flowing flow of water, because you know, water is life. That the Cancer season always reminds us that water is life. And at the time of that new moon, Venus is also she's at 22. Yeah, she's at 22 Cancer, so kind of like a power number there. And she's trying to Saturn, who's just recently gone retrograde over the last week at 19 degrees of Pisces. So there's something about what do we need to restructure in our own lives to take radical responsibility for nurturing our own, you know, desires. What will nourish our own heart and light us up? And so there's just things to contemplate. And there's something really powerful when something squares the lunar nodes. It's like we're at a choice point. We really have this opportunity to kind of go in a new direction by really really listening to what's going to nourish us. And I love that, Nura, you spoke to like simplicities, because so oftentimes it's like we get stuck in our mind and it's like what we really want, or what in Cancer even, what do we really need? Like that actually, what do we really need? Not even just desire, but what do we need for like self-care? Like oftentimes we can get stuck in our mind and it's like, well, I can't do that because this and that and that. And like we just get into all these like mind loops. And it's like when we can drop out of that and just be like really tune into it, and this is what I need, and acknowledge it and just say like yes to it, there's something really powerful and there's something really transformative about that. And with that trine to Saturn, there's like taking radical responsibility for what we need. And I feel this month will be very interesting with Saturn goes retrograde, I think June 29th at 19 Pisces. Neptune goes retrograde, I think July 2nd, something like that. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, at 29 Pisces. And this is such an interesting Neptune retrograde, because Neptune is, got moved to the last degree of Pisces. This is like a really big milestone. And then it's going to retrograde back to 27 Pisces. And then next year it'll actually go into Aries, and then like retrograde back into Pisces again, back to 29 Pisces. So there's something very, very powerful about, I feel like with this Neptune retrograde for all of us, we can all see reality through the veil of illusion, through our own conditioned, like distorted perceptions. And there's something very powerful, I feel like, about Neptune being at 29 Pisces going retrograde, personally and collectively, about on this invitation with this retrograde to kind of clear the fog of illusion, or pull back the veil of illusion, and particularly to pull back the fog of, or I'm like not even making sense I'm saying, but to like clear the fog where we don't see ourselves clearly, where we're seeing ourselves through like maybe self-limiting beliefs and perceptions, right? Like metaphorically, like our small self. I don't really like those like hierarchical words, but just to make the point, like where we're seeing ourselves through our small self, to really like open up that Pisces, to really see ourselves through the context of like our higher self and our exquisiteness and our magnificence. And when we're really like tapped into that aspect of ourself and our connection to like all that is, it really, when we can really meet life from that place, it really can shift so much in our reality. So I don't know, I have like just this like energetic feeling of like Saturn and Neptune going retrograde that feels just like it feels kind of like foggy, but also it's like wanting to pull back, like clear out the fog to see more clearly. To all of a sudden, like I'm here, on the southern Oregon coast, where it's so like at nighttime right now, it's like so foggy, but every now and then like the fog clears and it's so dark where I'm at that like all the stars emerge. It's like all of a sudden it's like, wow, we have that like greater perspective of where we are in the context of, life and the universe, and there's not even words for it. But also I feel like the Saturn retrograde, so many of us, we're all having so much like spiritual like expansion and evolution right now. I mean, this time has just been like wild, especially since the eclipse season, that now it's going to be kind of a recalibration and reorganization of our lives to kind of more attuned with what type of like spiritual expansion and evolution we've had. So I think a great time for Cancer season, it really feels kind of like an integration season, solar season for me, is to really like slow down and rest and flow and nourish ourselves and make sure we're not like too busy, to really like give ourselves that time for the yin, slow down.
I'm always a fan when somebody says, don't be too busy. Actually, that's kind of my plan for the summer as well, is to take some time and just very intentionally be with my family, and so do some travel and then do some chilling in the woods. That is my full-on intention for the summer. And I love everything. My mind is kind of swirling with, I feel like you're embodying the Neptune right now, Jamie, and you're kind of taking me to these like mystical worlds in between, like you're saying something, but then I'm like also having an experience too. So it's very interesting. Maybe I'm sharing some of your experience, but that overlay of the Pisces with the Aries. So we have the North Node in Aries and then all of this Pisces energy. And we're kind of in this precipice where we've got some switching over the coming year between, the North Node shifting into Pisces next year, and then, Neptune going from Pisces to Aries. There's all of this, handing off of the baton, but it's that special transition zone where we're in endings and beginnings. We spoke about this a little bit before we were recording too, us being the ones who are laying down this fresh seed for these new beginnings, but also kind of being in the endings. And I think that's really important to tune into with the Saturn retrograde and all that comes up around that. Like, it kind of gives me fish attention span thoughts. Like, we can have these ideas that we're going in this new direction, but then like something could distract us, and like all of a sudden we're looking this way, and then like we forgot what we were doing, and then like all of a sudden we're like going over here, and like we've forgot, oh, what's happening. And that can be a little bit of the disorienting nature of both Neptune and then any planet occupying Pisces. And so there's an openness, a flexibility to our perception, but Saturn, I think, is that reminder of really how to concentrate and how to focus, but it's practicing a muscle of focus, a muscle of attention, and also recognizing what does it offer us in terms of intentional sensitivity. Because I know if you're an empath, I'm certainly incredibly empathic. I've really had to practice, how to tune into what is my energy, what is your energy, and realize there's a benefit to feeling other energies. And so if I'm doing that on purpose and intentionally, like in a healing space, and it's with consent, then it's all great. But if it's happening like on accident because I'm distracted or I'm overwhelmed or I'm busy, then all of a sudden now I'm like walking down this path. I don't even know how I got there, or I'm like picking up on other people's energies too intensely. Well, then that's okay. The reminder, go back to Saturn, go back to like, what is my space? What is me? What do I influence? So especially with all of the preponderance of water energy this Cancer season, we want to really tune into how can we be sensitive to where we end and where another begins, and how can that sensitivity support us to both consciously dismantle the structures that we need to dismantle in our lives, but also maintain the boundaries that we require in order to feel safe. So there's this constant dance. We're never not moving. We're always sort of adjusting or zooming in or out. And I think that's a big part of the Pisces energy that's overlaying with the Cancer. And so there's a day that is really standing out in my mind, July 9th. It's a couple days after that new moon in Cancer, where we have not only a grand water trine, so involving Saturn as well as the Sun, and then Pallas Athene in Scorpio. So that will be its own kind of reminder of this purposeful sensitivity, boundaries, and how does it blend in our creativity and our influence and culture with Pallas Athene. But that same day, we also have Jupiter, who is a host of Pisces, but he's in Gemini right now, forming a sextile with the North Node in Aries. And so the last sextile that we had between Jupiter and the North Node was about 8 years ago in 2016. And then the next one that we will have will be in 2028. So we're kind of in this in between two different trines. And as you could see with that year span, it's like 8 years and then 4 years, but like it's not every year. So we want to tune into the specialness of that kind of opportunity, because that's really what sextiles are. They bring us an opportunity. It's not always obvious what it is, especially with the North Node. So Jupiter is trine the South Node. There might be a lot of conversation. There might be some more air energy, some more ideas that are coming in with that Gemini Libra trine. But then there's also this opportunity to take some new action with Jupiter sextile the North Node. So some new ideas can really come in. And that combined with the water trine of that time, it seems like the more safe, settled, secure, emotionally supported that we are, the more easily we will be able to access those fresh ideas and take some fresh action on them. So there's a lot of interdependence independence between all of the elements at this time. It's like we don't want to go too far into any one of them. Like we really want to feel into what is the balance that can support me in the new. Something that's been really coming through for me too. It's like when we have a solstice season, so Cancer season or Capricorn season, we're in an extreme of light, but these extremes can actually propel us into a new kind of balance that really supports us. So sometimes we need to go out of balance or off center to actually get a totally fresh perspective. So it feels like, this middle of the Cancer season, we have that kind of opportunity, and any sextile is a little bit like a karmic choice point or a karmic fruition point. But there's a lot of that choice energy right now where it's not like you have to be afraid that you're going to make the wrong choice. It's just about making choices. It's about feeling safe to trust yourself to make some choices. And especially if you kind of err to that more indecisive side of like the Libra and Gemini can both sometimes be pretty indecisive signs. It's like indecision, option overwhelm. If you're feeling any sense of that, it's an indicator that maybe there's a little bit too much weight on brain mind. And so to settle a little bit more into emotional mind or heart mind or gut mind, settle a little bit more into your faith and your trust and your intuition, because your brain mind could have a conversation with itself all day long. You might not ever get to the point of there's a clear pro or con list. So the opportunity, I think, it's not just about the specific choice that you make. It's more about trusting yourself to make choices, because it's really the moving beyond that energetically draining state of indecision. So I think that's a really beautiful kind of reminder mid-Cancer season to stay very attuned to our emotional body.
I love that. The idea of all the Pisces, Cancer, Neptune, Saturn, all those things. It's trusting your inner knowing that is not necessarily logical, rational, or reasonable. And sometimes we might have a knowing and then we try to talk ourselves out of it because we want it to be more logical, rational. So how can we just drop into that knowing and trust it and take action on it? So I'm going to invite us all to just say a sentence or two about wrapping this up. And what I'm thinking about is one of my favorite quotes about being in the unknown comes from Swami Beyondananda. He says, the best way to face the unknown is by not knowing.
Yes, I love that. I'll just say real quick, like my best lessons of being with the unknown are just accepting that by embracing the unknown, more will be known, or in the end, all will be known. And it's really just that initial moment of surrender, but it does get easier. You surrender the first time and then you just keep surrendering. And like anything, it's a practice, but you build up that sense of safety the more you do it.
I love that. I feel like every time I really surrender to the unknown, it always leads me to something better than what I knew before. And so I always like that reminder that when we can release our attachment to the comfort that comes from knowing, it usually guides us to something that's better and beyond what we knew before.
And for me, the sentence is very woven in what Nura was saying about this day, that Mercury is also in sextile. And something that is coming to me a lot these days, that we are the voices of a new era. And we are the seeds, but there is important in sharing our voice. And Jupiter is in Gemini. And it's really, if we want to see a change, there is this part of being part of the change, not the shame. That's the part that we want to leave behind. And is truly embodying our voices and now that inner knowing, not just for ourselves, but to really share, because in that unlocking the throat, there is a lot of nurturing for ourselves too. So I think that is really embraced and is very scary, because I think when we tap into that inner knowing, there is a lot of memory of ancestral dying in the as a witch, as a shaman, as a like so many stories entangled in that inner knowing that is also connected with the inanas, dying and rebirth, and to really be reborn as a strong voice for the new generations and for ourselves at this moment as well.
Oh, so good. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. We love you so much, and we're so happy to share this with you because we are all in this together, and we are here to support one another through this amazing time, and to be those that are helping to craft what the new cycles are that are coming forward into the next phase of whatever that's going to be. Bye, everybody.